So welcome back to my channel. I am Phil Marriott, bringing you the latest entertainment news to their movie review, because Raj is here.
Hey Phil.
From Boys on Film. We've just come out of a 2.5 hour screening of Suspiria at the London Film Festival.
What did we just watch?
I know. I have to say, because I've seen the original, you haven't seen the original yet.
Right.
The original was a 1977 horror movie from one of the masters of horror, obviously John Carpenter being another one, Dario Argento. An absolute classic, not just for the horror genre, but just such a memorable film. Quite a different film, this rework. I'd like to call it a reimagining.
Well, I was purely here because you were very excited about this horror movie at London Film Festival. I'm also here for Luca Guadagnino. How do you say his name? Guadagnino. Luca, we love you. Because, of course, I was a massive fan of Call Me By Your Name. So when he announced last year that he was doing a remake of a horror classic, Suspiria, I was like, well, this is a must-see.
So very different in many ways.
Yes.
What was your overall impression? Because, you know, we did come out a bit frazzled, but I'm not sure if that's because it was an early morning screening, because it was quite a long film.
Yeah, this movie was a bit much for 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
But I think it might be a bit much for 8:30 in the evening, too. I mean, it's a story about essentially. Sorry if that's a spoiler for you, but it is kind of...
I think most people would know.
Yeah, it's about in a dance company. I didn't hate it, but I just felt a bit jolted by some of the different scenes and how he switched from like light to dark really quick, and it was just and what I don't necessarily say it was a scary movie. I won't even necessarily say, you're even warning me that it could be a bit gory. It was a bit gory in a few places, but overall I think it's more of an art piece than an actual horror film.
You know, I'm a hardened horror fan, and I wanted it to be a bit scarier, but then the original, I think when you compare the two, and I don't really want to compare the two, because I think his version is very different in a lot of ways, and I think he does bring something new to the film. And obviously it's longer, because it's now longer than the original by Dario Argento. The original version's got a very minimal, almost lullaby-ish score. You know, it's very hypnotic. It's very stark. This score's been composed by Tom York from Radiohead, and I think he did a fantastic job with the score. I have to say it's one of the highlights for me, the music, because it really does add a mood to the film.
Yeah.
But it's a very different mood to the original. So I think there are a lot of differences, which I think is a good thing. I think if you're a fan of the original, you might see something else.
Yeah.
You might be disappointed by certain things. I think there was a lot of gore in the film. There was a lot of bad makeup, I think. A lot of bad prosthetics. But I don't know whether that was meant to be a deliberate thing, because it's meant to be quite garish.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to this film, if you're a fan of Chloë Grace Moretz, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed.
I think so.
And even if you're a fan of Dakota Johnson, I think you're going to be a bit disappointed too. I think she kind of took this role just to get out of the stretch of being in all those 50 Shades movies and maybe show her diversity in her acting chops a bit. Did you like Dakota's character, Susie?
I thought the character was a bit vague.
Yeah.
Tilda Swinton, who I think is amazing in film, she wasn't quite as scary as I wanted her to be. I wanted her to be a bit more menacing. And I think
she was a bit Tilda Swinton.
She was a bit Tilda Swinton. I mean, she's always great in films. You briefly touched on the story. It's about Susie, who goes to ballet school in East Berlin. That political element does come into the story quite a bit, particularly towards the end.
Maybe a bit too much, if you're asking me, but I just don't understand how that part of the story and kind of met together. Like, it didn't weave together very nicely for me.
Did it hold your attention? I think it held my attention.
It did hold my attention. I was quite intrigued. Some of the scenes when they really kick in really kind of hit you in the face. I don't like it. I didn't hate it. The only thing I fear is I'm such a big fan of Luca's work on Call Me By Your Name that I think critically is going to get quite panned for this movie.
Right.
Even afterwards, the chatter from the critics in the audience was not a good indication that this is going to do very well critically, which is a little sad, because I really like Luca Guadagnino as a person, you know.
He's got a lot of visual flair, I think, on
He's
screen.
got a lot of visual flair, and I think this might be a bit of a kick for him. So yeah, greenlight that Call Me By Your Name sequel really quick.
Yeah. The first scene with the first ballet student, I think that was done perfectly, and it really did give me goosebumps, and it made me feel very uneasy. I kind of wanted that effect to continue through the rest of the film, because towards the end there's a red filter that he uses, which I think is a bit of a cop-out.
But see, for me, there's like art house horror, which this definitely is an art house horror. And then there's films like Mandy, which are way too atmospheric that I find it very hard to watch and be in the mood for. So if you're going to compare this to any other current movie at the time, like, I found this to be a bit more watchable than Mandy, let's say. So, which is very red and blue filter as well. So
it's interesting what you said about it not being a horror, or you don't think it really felt like a horror, because
it doesn't. It feels like an art house horror movie to me.
Which I think is surprising, because I think for me is scary as hell.
Yeah.
Something being out of your control is a really scary thing, and I think for me personally it really wasn't as scary as I was hoping.
Yeah.
Because I think that subject matter can be terrifying, but I just don't think it was as much as I thought it could have been.
Yeah. Even for hardened horror fans like yourself, there are scenes in here which are quite brutal and grotesque, and I think any horror fan would appreciate that. But overall, it kind of just comes off as more of an art house film for me.
Yeah.
Which I appreciated. Don't see more than one movie in a day after you see this, because
I couldn't see another film after that.
It's a little bit unsettling for me. I can't watch. I don't even know how I'm going to function today after seeing that.
I feel quite drained. I think in some ways it reminded me of Mother. I know you didn't enjoy that film.
Not as much though. I mean, I could actually sit through and watch this, whereas
it does go a bit nuts.
Whereas Mother and Mandy, it's a bit too much for me.
It's really hard for me to give a star rating, because, like I said to you when the credits were rolling, there are elements that I really loved, especially the first half an hour, but there were elements that I really didn't like, that jarred for me a little bit. The makeup being one of those. I think parts of the special effects were fantastic, parts weren't so good. I think parts were a bit lazy. For me, I think it's a 3-star.
It's a 3-star for me too. You know, if you're a fan of art house horror, this is kind of right up your street. If you're looking for really fantastic performances from the actors, I think that you might be a bit disappointed. And I think if you love Tilda Swinton, you'll like seeing her in this
you won't
too.
be disappointed by her. I think if you are going to compare this to the original, though, and you are a fan of the original, you will miss out on some things that were brought to you by Dario Argento, in particular the very garish reds and the greens, which were obviously very iconic from the first film. This doesn't really do that so much. It has more of a cold feel. Also, the ballet school as well is huge compared to the original. I mean, it's quite a big school in the original.
I kind of want to see the original now.
I think you should, because I think you will see differences.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's interesting. 3 stars for Suspiria, one of the most, anticipated films, particularly horror films.
Especially here at BFI London Film Festival this year. It was a packed press screening.
It was.
So be curious to see what the other reviews are like when they come out as well.
See it on a big screen as well if you can. We saw it on the IMAX screen, which is just huge. And I think you really do get that sense of it being quite encompassing, and, I feel quite drained after coming out of that.
Yeah. How am I going to function today?
He's breathing out a sigh of relief. Thank you very much for watching. If you are new here, by the way, don't forget to subscribe, because we bring you regular movie reviews. And the London Film Festival continues until Sunday, so we've got lots more to come. See you next time.